Hello, sir. How are you?
Good, good. And you?
I'm very well. It's so nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
So let's just dive right in and introduce yourself. Tell us, tell us what you do now and how you got there, like your education, your background in wine.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just in the Saint-Georges for now, and maybe it's a little bit cloudy. Maybe we'll have some rain. I've checked the forecast for the next hour, and maybe I have to don't stay here because we expect to have a little bit of rain. So we'll see. Um, so
Okay.
the
Do
to explain, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't hear you very well. Um, So my the domain is a young domain because everything has been created in 2001. So it's a domain. It's an old family, but the domain is quite young. But the family was created in 2000. The family business has been created in 1720. So this year, 300 years of uh, of the family business in the wine. But my family wasn't a wine grower because in the old French family, it was quite impossible to become a wine grower because wine grower was considered a little bit like a farmer, like a paysan, and for a family son, it was quite impossible to become a wine grower. So most part of time, the first son become the chairman, the second go to the army, and third priest. It was always like this.
Yeah.
And for the daughter, it was worse because for the daughter, it will be better than the daughter fall in love of the owner of the neighbor vineyard. So, and we like to say, if she's not in love, the love will come later. So for my story, I've decided to become a winemaker. My father never worked in the wine business
Oh,
because in the 70s it was not easy for the Burgundy wine for the business for Burgundy wine. It's why that my grandfather was the owner and chairman of the wine merchant company. Said to my father, "Don't go in the wine business. There's no future." And my father have decided to study finance in Paris, and he have worked for 40 years in the financial trade. So I was born in Paris, and I never been. I was in Burgundy only for the weekend because with my grandmother, and we go for the weekend. But you can imagine that when you spend a weekend with a grandmother and 60 years difference, it wasn't very fun. Except if you like to play Scrabble. But it was not the case for me, and I just have to cross the garden and to see one of the very good friend of my father, who was a winemaker. And every weekend he was at work. It was in his winery, and uh, and I just have to be with him. And one time I remember I asked the question to him and say, why you never take any rest when you during the weekend? And his answer was perfect because he said to me that I don't need to take any rest. I prefer to be in my cellar, in my vineyard, instead to be in front of my TV on my sofa to don't do anything. And this sentence changed a little bit my life because I say this is maybe what I want to do. I don't want to be to to just wait the weekend to have a good time. I want to have a good time every day, and I want to do it something I like. And I've asked my father to study wine. To be honest, he was a little bit surprised because he say it's a hard job. It's not easy for you to do it. And okay, if you want to do it, okay, why not? But you have to work hard. And I've started my study in '91 in Beaune,
okay.
and between Beaune and Nuit Saint Georges is 15 kilometers. It's not too far. And after my study, I've worked for a company. Maybe some people know it's called Fee Coffee, and for 2 years. And after I've created with a very good friend of me, which is Marc Perrin from Beaucastel,
Oh,
and we have created for with a few friends a website. We sell one by internet. It was in '99.
wow.
So, and at the end of this website, so we have sold this website to a part of LVMH Group. It was the moment for me to take over the vineyard. In 2001, I've took over the family vineyard, and also I've bought some other vineyards.
Wow.
So voilà.
So
And for now,
tell us where
I
you are.
thank you. And since I try to understand my work in the vineyard, I try to understand the it start raining, and I try to do the best as I can. And also, it's our job is so interesting because every year is different. Every vintage, it's another. It's not a real challenge. It's more. Um, it's more something something we discover every year, and we try to. Our job is to understand the and to make the observation of the vineyard. You know, when I took over the vineyard was in a very, very bad condition. The soil was gray. Gray soil is a sign of dead soil.
Oh.
And for me, when you are in Burgundy and you work with only one grape variety, which is Pinot Noir, you don't have to take care too much about the grape variety. Because I like to say, I'm not a producer of Pinot Noir. I'm a producer of Nuit Saint-Georges, of Beaune-Romanée, Gevrey-Chambertin, and I use Pinot Noir like the musician with the instrument. You can have the best instrument, but if you don't know how to play with, you don't do anything with this instrument. And the Pinot, I don't want that the people taste my wine and say, "Oh, it tastes like Pinot Noir," because it would be a big mistake. I want the people taste the in the wine, where does the wine come from? The taste of the grapes. I like to say it's the taste of the place. And when you take over the vineyard without too much life in the soil, you say, all we can do to have the taste of the place if we don't take care about the soil. The problem that in the last 30 years, the wine grower think about the what they see outside and not what we see inside. I talk about what the leaves, the grapes, the vine, and not exactly the substance of the soil. And the problem that they just integrate inside the soil what the vine need. So it was a big mistake for me because we don't have to think about the vine. We have to think about what the soil need. It's exactly the same thing that if you have a factory and at the beginning of the factory, you put a final product instead to make the raw material. Nothing happened in the factory. The soil is a big factory with so many people work inside, and we just have to maintain a sort of balance and just to ask to the soil, I give you what you need to produce to the vine what the vine need, and not I give you what the vine need directly. I don't use the soil like a sort of storage. It's not a shell of organic. It's a factory, and I put what the soil need and to think about the soil. And this is why since 2001 I've decided to turn all the vineyard in organic. And it was a first start. It was interesting, but maybe not exactly what I want to do because organic farming, you have to follow a sort of not a sort of recipe, but very different rules.
Mhm.
And when I follow this rule, I have the impression that I think about exactly the same thing that if I use some chemical products, except that I use natural product, but I don't think about what each soil need because each soil is different, each parcel is different, and we have to think about each one by one.
Okay.
And slowly, in 2004, I began to make an approach of biodynamic, and after a few experimentation in the parcels, I've seen a huge change.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2005, I've decided to apply all the preparation in the vineyard in the biodynamic preparation. But the biodynamic for me it's a sort of language. It's not it's not something we have to believe. It's not something uh, we we are not witches. We are just a wine grower want to produce grapes and the best grapes as we can. But it's a fact. I like to say it's a sort of language. We ask something to the soil, we use a certain type of preparation, And from this preparation, we just have to see the result. A lot of people say we work in biodynamic, but everybody can work in biodynamic. Every can say we apply the different preparation, which is a two main preparation. This is 500, which is a cow dung we put inside the cow horn, and we spray at the beginning of winter and at the end of winter. And the 501, which is a silicate, and of course we can use it. Everybody can use, but the most important thing is to understand the answer of the plant, the answer of the soil, and also the moment where we have to apply this preparation and some other preparation. And from this observation, we begin to have a sort of sort of intuitive understanding. And this intuitive understanding is so interesting because we understand really much better about the plant, about the soil, and every year we understand that maybe we follow the good way, or maybe it's not exactly the good way for this type of vineyard. So we learn. But the only problem that we understand that a life will be not enough to understand everything, especially when you work with nature. So maybe biodynamic help us to understand more less the rule of what happens in the soil with something too systematic, but maybe more something with more subtlety. Mm-hmm. And just to understand just something a little bit more fine. So, and it's so passionate also to do this.
Wow. If you're in the rain, I don't want you to stand in the rain. If you need to move to get out of the rain, that's fine.
I'm fine. I'm waterproof.
Could you show us around? Tell us where you are.
Yeah, I have a cat if it's necessary. You see, but it's a week. And today it's 15 degrees Celsius. So, but it's a rain, but also the bird is still singing, and the vine take the water by the leaves and by the soil, and I think it's perfect. It's exactly what we need and what the vine need. So I'm happy to be outside. It's not just a few drops. It's nothing. Okay. So I'm still. When you will see my hair wet, maybe I will enter inside my car. But now I'm just on the wall, just above the Saint-Georges. You see behind me, and I can show you if you want.
Yeah, please.
The vineyard, of course. So this is the Saint-Georges. Mm-hmm. I'm at the top of the Saint-Georges. We have just plowing yesterday. Yesterday it was dry, and we are plowing for the third time. And it's interesting to see the soil, which is quite brown, and just you have Les Saint-Georges, okay. Just there you see a line which is the Longecourt, which is a village, and after you have the Bourgogne les Grands Chaillots in this area. And if on the other side, this is the Vaucrin, du Saint-Georges Premier Cru les Vaucrins, which is there. And I want to show you something in the Saint-Georges to understand a little bit. I take the stair. So the Saint-Georges, it's a brown soil,
okay,
as you see, and it's something very interesting because when we have took over this vineyard, the soil was quite gray. Now you see it's really brown. Mm-hmm. And also you see it's a very small piece of limestone. Mm-hmm. And this small piece of limestone, it wasn't like this when I took over the vineyard. Oh. And this piece of limestone, if I take one, for example, this one, for example, which is a small piece of limestone. Uh-huh. And this piece of limestone came from the fault in the middle of Les Saint-Georges, just cross like this. Okay. In diagonal, we have a fault. This fault, it's 2 meters deep, and the scratching of the fault creates a very specific limestone, which is called calcite. It's a sort of crystal of limestone.
Okay.
And the scratching of the fault creates this calcite, but this fault is 2 meters deep.
Hmm.
And at the beginning, when I've produced my first Saint Georges, the Saint Georges was a wine with little bit rustic, or with one with shoulder, a little bit masculine. And after 10 years of organic farming, biodynamic farming, I've seen that my soil, which is still brown, but you see a lot of white point everywhere, which is the calcite came at the surface and changed a little bit my wine. So I was really surprised, because when I took over this vineyard, it was gray and very orange. Now it's more brown and white. And this change of soil, because this calcite 2 meters deep, it's not the job of the plowing. It's just a natural movement of the soil, create a movement inside the soil, and the calcite begin to come at the surface, and the wine begin to have really much more purity and finesse and freshness. So it's a it's it's a wine that changed a lot, and I think it's the biggest change was in Les Saint Georges since I've took over this all of my parcel. The style of the Saint Georges have changed a lot
Hmm.
between 2002, who was my first vintage, and 2012.
So, Thibault, when you see your soil you took over, as you said, orange and gray, how do you A, figure out what you need, and then B, how to provide?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Oh, I really.
I try to do. I'm under the rain,
Oh,
as you see.
but you need to go to the car. Dog.
Sorry. Up. I can turn my phone. So I can't change my camera. I'm sorry.
Do you want to go back to the car? I don't want you to get wet.
No, no, it's fine.
Fine.
It's just for a minute. It's nothing.
So when you said you saw the soil was gray, how do you know what it needs, and then what do you do to fix that?
I didn't know what I need, to be honest. I just try to know that I need to have more organic matter in my soil, and I need to just give
Okay.
I just need in my soil a little bit more fertility. I need some lime. You know, the best thing that when you see something gray, you understand that you have to read the book from the people, and the people work in the vineyard say you need compost, you need some cow dung, you need just to revive. I can say revitalize
Revitalize.
revitalize, thank you, the soil. And you don't have to do too much things. You have to stop to use chemical product. You have to stop to make to use a chemical product, and just to make the plowing, but not too much. uh, you know uh, the soil don't need too much of us.
Hmm.
We have so much things to learn about the soil, that we have to give something to the soil. For example, we do the plowing for the third time this year, and I think it's the last one until the harvest. Only 3 times.
Wow.
It's not because I like to say a worms cut in two is not two worms. It's only one. Is one less.
It's one
So
last.
we don't need to make too much. We don't have to make too much plowing. I like to say, when you make the plowing and you see the grass is begin to grow in on the soil, you just have to ask the question: why the soil is never clean? Why the soil the we begin to have some grass, and so many different type of grass? And we understand, when we talk with the people, we understand that if we have too much sun directly on the soil when the soil is naked, you can destroy more the soil than if you keep grass. The grass is a sort of sun protection against the UV, and because if you keep the soil naked, you can make the analysis of all the bacteria you have at the first 5 centimeters of the soil versus the soil with a lot of grass. It's 1 million more active with the grass than nothing. So you say, okay, if the grass want to grow, we have to keep the grass here, and also to maintain a sort of good competition between the vine and between the grass, and each plant need another one. So we just need to understand the balance between the grass and the vine. We don't have to forget that we have to produce some grapes and to produce wine. But sometimes, for example, for the bud break, we have to remove the grass because the vine need to make this to start need a lot of energy, and I prefer to return the grass and to create some green compost. Then also for the flowering, which is a sort of birth for the grapes, for the vine, so it need a lot of need some energy. So we just have to do it. And now just to don't have too much competition for the harvest, and also if we have some rain, to don't have the grass inside the grapes and create humidity, and the humidity in the grapes can create rot. That's it. And after, if I have the grass, it will be so comfortable for harvest to walk on the grass versus to walk on the clay, because it's always a little bit sticky.
I never thought of that, but that's true too. So does the this is just back to me in the restaurant, the change in soil since you took over, does that translate into the glass, or does it really just mean your vines are healthier when there's a drought or there's hail or there's mildew?
Just I haven't answered the beginning of your question. Excuse me.
The health of the soil that changed so much since you took over, does that translate to taste in the glass, or more just vine is healthier?
Well, they change in both way. So they change more. I prefer to talk about the texture than the smell. The texture of my wine have changed, and the texture also because I've understood a few things in my soil. So I've understood that in this parcel for Les Saint-Georges, for example, versus a parcel of Richebourg or Clos, it's three different type of soil, and we have to manage each one by one. And I've seen that if I understand better that the type of soil I need, also I can adapt a little bit what I used to do since 2006, which is all cluster, and to create the balance between the type of the soil, the vintage, and the type of wine I want to produce for this for the vintage. I think the texture of the soil, the texture of the wine change more inside when you taste the wine and at the beginning of the palate, because you feel better the identity of each wine. And we know, you know, that in Burgundy we have a lot of clay, and the clay, it's this is what the different type of clay gives the texture in the wine at the beginning. Sometimes it's more fine. We can take the example of Chambol-Musigny. Chambol-Musigny, when you take the clay between your finger, it's so soft, and when you taste the wine, it's so soft. And we have a real analogy between the clay of Chambol and the clay and the taste of the texture of Chambol and the clay of Chambol. If I take some clay in Les Saint-Georges, it's a little bit more abrasive. Now it's less easy because it's wet, but when you take it's dry, you feel something a little bit grainy, a little bit sandy between your finger. And when you taste the wine, you have something close to what you touch when you touch the clay of Les Saint-Georges. And I like this analogy. I take another example. If you take a piece of limestone and you lick it, it's so interesting to lick the limestone. A lot of people talk about minerality, but the minerality, without to know exactly what is minerality. To be honest, I don't have any idea about what is real minerality. But I lick the limestone here, and when I lick the limestone and I open the bottle of Saint Georges, and I find the same, quite the same line in the middle of my tongue between the limestone I lick in Les Saint Georges and the limestone I can lick in Vosne-Romanée-Auréat, which is a terroir with a lot of limestone. They are a sort of link something common between the two. And also, this is something I feel more now that I feel in the past in my wine. Also, maybe because I'm more sensitive, it's hard to say it's my work in the vineyard, and it will be very pretentious also to say it's the work, it's my vinification. I think it's it's something common between everything. It's everything have importance, but our job is really to think about each step of the process and all we can do. We don't have to do something better. It's not the work to say I want to do something better. It's just I want to make something more precise. But we know that we produce so many wines. For me, I produce 28 different wines in Burgundy. So sometimes it's 2 barrels, sometimes it's 30, 60 barrels or so for Bourgogne. And of course, each year there are one wine would be so in love of this wine, and another one say, I'm sure that last year it was better, and maybe next year it will be better. It will be better, but this year, okay, it's okay, but not exactly my taste. And we make some mistake, and we'll make some mistake, but we learn so much for a mistake, especially with our job.
Yeah. Wow. There's a question that just popped up. How is Haute Côte de Beaune vineyard compared to Côte de Beaune?
Haute Côte de Nuit, maybe, versus
Oh,
Côte de Nuit.
must be. Yeah.
It will be easier for me. I know both the Haute Côte de Nuit versus Côte de Nuit. So, but you see behind me,
Yeah.
I will show you. Up, yes. You see the antenna
Uh-huh.
here?
Yeah.
Okay. This, and you have all the vineyard uh, of the south of Nuit Saint-Georges. You
Okay.
see the line here
Yeah.
with a lot of limestone. Here it's an old quarry here.
Huh?
So you have nothing, and you up just here, and you have the Haute Côte de Nuit, and here's a sort of plateau
Mm-hmm.
called Chaux, Chaux. Chaux means chalk.
Oh.
In this area, the name of the village where it's situated is Chalk. So you can easily understand that it's a place with a lot of limestone.
Wow.
So here, the altitude of Les Saint-Georges is 275 meters. In this area above, it's 400 meters. Okay, so you have quite a big difference between the two, nearly more than 100 meters. So of course, we like to say every 100 meters, we have to wait 1 week or before to have the same maturity.
Mm-hmm.
It was true, I think, 10 years ago, maybe a little bit less.
Okay.
What is interesting between Haute Côte de Nuit, it's a very poor soil because this is the last sedimentation of the soil and the last sedimentation of the limestone. So the soil in, for example, the vineyard I have in this area, which is Corvée de Villy,
Mm-hmm.
it's a vineyard where you have 30 centimeters of red and orange clay, then the very, very flat limestone. In this area, it's always very tight. But we harvest about at the end of the harvest. If we start in Les Saint-Georges the first week or the first day of the harvest, we finish with Corvée de Villy the last day, nearly 1 week later, and it's ripe. What I like between the Haute Côte, we have earned a really nice and very interesting minerality and a very interesting maturity, excuse me. And now sometime I don't have any problem to say that the Haute Côte de Nuit could be in some vintage the level of some village.
Wow.
And because the soil, of course, if you see the bottom of the hill, like
Mm-hmm.
Bourgogne here, Bourgogne area, I don't find my finger. But in Bourgogne here, this
Mm-hmm.
is the bottom, so it's a deeper soil, a little bit more clay and silt. If you
Okay.
go in the Haute Côte, it's poor soil. You see the quarry and the limestone there, and it's very very interesting soil because we are on the limestone, and we can have and this limestone bring a lot of freshness in the wine. And if you have the good maturity, so you have the cocktail to make something very interesting. We just have to manage. We don't have to think when we make wine. It's not because it's a Bourgogne or Haute Côte de Nuit versus a Premier Cru or a Grand Cru that we have produced more because we sell the wine less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
For me, each wine, each vineyard, it's exactly the same. We
Yeah.
have some vine, we have some grapes, it's the same grapes. The grapes is the same, the vine is the same, the soil is different, but we have to manage exactly in the same way. So if we work, if we do the work in the Richebourg and we try to do a very good work in terms of plowing, in terms of debudding, we do exactly the same in the vineyard of Haute-Côte to maintain the good quality. I'm sure that, you know, the Bourgogne wine and the Haute-Côte wine is a little bit more a business card than the Premier Cru and Grand Cru,
Yeah.
because the people start with this wine and after they go to taste some Premier Cru and Grand Cru. So for me, it's a vineyard we don't have to forget, and I think we are really to focus in the future because it's very interesting and will be more and more interesting in the future.
Yeah, I learned a while back from a winemaker I respect a lot that you judge a winemaker by their entry level wine, and every time when I do Burgundy, I every time I buy a classified growth, I always get the Bourgogne Rouge and have it on my list, and it's very fun to go through those. You make wine in Beaujolais also, right? In Moulin Avant. Can you talk about how
Yeah.
that's Burgundy farming?
Yeah, it's exactly the same that what we used to do in Nuit Saint Georges. The different, exactly the same philosophy, but the different type of farming because it's not the same soil. I've decided to create the vineyard in Moulin Avant in 2008, so 12 years ago now, because for me it was I finished my study in Beaujolais, and every morning I open the window. I rent a very small house in the middle of the vineyard of Beaujolais, and every morning I open the window. And the view was it's so beautiful. A lot of hill, and it's a beautiful place here. But Beaujolais, it's two times more beautiful. Big. I mean the two. I mean the two in the two place. So I can say this kind of things, of course. And I try to don't be too chauvin. But the Beaujolais, it's so beautiful. And the question is why the view is so beautiful and the wine is not at the level of the view. And my idea, because I've tasted so many wines, and every time it was more a deception than something I said, wow. Except a few times, I've tasted some very interesting wines. Say some people can produce a magic wine with a magic wine with a taste of terroir, and I keep in a part of my head uh, something that I say I will go in the Beaujolais in the future. So of course I've started my domain in 2001, so it was quite difficult to start everything. And when you start, you have to do everything. But in 2008, I decided to go in Moulin and to purchase 3 hectares. I haven't purchased a specific domain with the domain, the winery, everything. I've built the domain step by step. For example, for the three first hectares I've bought in 2008, I've signed 8 contracts. So I've built one by one, step by step, parcel per parcel. And my idea was to make a sort of Burgundy model. I don't want to produce some Beaujolais wine taste like Burgundy. It's not my job. It's not what I want to do. But I want to separate all the terroir one by one and to create, to try to be a little bit the Citeaux monk in the Beaujolais. Try to find a good parcel. Say this with this one, we can make a very specific cuvée. For now, we have 6 cuvées. 4 come from a specific terroir, 2 in the north side of the appellation, 2 in the south side of appellation, 1 at the bottom, 1 at the top of the hill, 1 with a very different type of soil, and 2 is a blend because we have 12 hectares in Beaujolais. And with the 12 hectares, the biggest cuvée is cuvée de vieilles vignes, the vieilles vignes cuvée, the old vine. And the old vine is a mix of 9 different parcels, half of the domain, 50% of the domain, but it's all the vineyard is situated at the same level, which is a very low soil and very old vine. The vine for the vieille vigne is between 65 to 105 years old, so we can begin to talk about old vines, and all the other ones, the youngest vine is 55 years old. So we have a very interesting vineyard. Uh, the vine know for a long time where they are, and they have learned the terroir. So we can have a very good expression. It's why also the problem in the Beaujolais, a lot of wine growers because say they don't have enough money or maybe not the education to make the organic farming. But a lot of vineyard we have bought, the soil was like a lunar soil and nothing grow. But when you compare to the soil of Burgundy, which is clay, and the clay is a sort of thousand of leaves, okay? And when you have to change and you want to start again, we relive the soil, it's like an open book, but you have to rewrite all the pages of the book. In Beaujolais, it's sand, it's granite and sand. And the sand have the less memory than the clay. So if in Burgundy needs nearly 10 years between the moment where I took over and the moment where I have a very good response from the vineyard with the quality and also the response of the organic farming. In Beaujolais, it was 5 years.
Wow.
So yes, really less. And I've seen the effect. I've produced my first vintage in 2009. My favorite vintage since I've started was 2014. Not because it's the best, because it's the first vintage where I've understood that this terroir can produce this one with this texture and this taste. And I begin to see the real identity of the soil 5 years after I took over the vineyard. So now it's 12 hectares. It's quite difficult in Beaujolais, less and less to sell it because a lot of people begin to like and rediscover the Beaujolais. But because the climate, because in 16 we had some hail, 17 hail, 2018 two-time hail in 16 and 17. The production was not too high, and 19 frost. So we cross the finger for 2020. For now, everything goes well.
Wow, yeah, good luck. Well, Thibault, we're well past the half hour. I have to let you go, but this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you. But do you want to say anything before we go?
No, I'm very happy to share with you, and sorry to don't give you a good view of Burgundy today, just because the weather is cloudy. But I like to be under the rain because the rain it's what the people like. So it's not a problem to be with you and to chat with you outside, and of course the best thing is to come to see us and to be in the vineyard, to lick the stone, to taste the wine, to see our place and to understand better, because nothing is better that we can have the best bottle, you can see the best bottle, but nothing is better to be there and to understand from the beginning where does the grapes come from. So please come, and you are very welcome. Thank you
So much. It's been really special to be in the rain with you, and you can hear it. It's really great. Thank you very much. This has really been eye-opening, and I'm going to have to go watch again to soak it all in. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.